Good evening. We'll call this meeting of the West Hollywood Rent Stabilization Commission to order, September 13th, 2018. If you'll please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please ensure your mics are turned on, and for the public as well, when you speak at the mic, please ensure that you speak directly into the microphone. Our secretary, Ms. Barino, can we please have a roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Kirpies?
Here.
Commissioner Bergstein?
Here.
Commissioner O'Keefe? Commissioner Maggio?
Present.
Commissioner Topchian? Vice Chair Gregoire?
Here.
Chair Charity?
Here.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. We'll be moving on from item 3 to item 4, approval of the agenda. Commissioners, having reviewed tonight's agenda, we do have a few changes that I would like to go over first. The first one is in the approval of the minutes in item 5. We're going to be approving 2 sets of minutes tonight, August 9th and August 23rd, I believe. So just making sure we see that. And then also, from our legal counsel, Ms. Regan, we have resolution, a little bit of unfinished business, resolution RSC 18-530 in your packet. And I thought we could put that in item 10 under unfinished business, if that's agreeable to everybody. So,
As amended?
Second.
all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All are in favor. So we'll move on from the item 4 to item 5, approval of the minutes. We'll first go to the August 9th, 2018 minutes. Commissioners, having reviewed those minutes, do you have any changes or a motion to approve?
I move approval of the minutes.
Second?
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thank you. We'll move on to the August 23rd minutes. Having reviewed the August 23rd minutes, this was the study session, so just for the record, I need to abstain from this vote because I was not present at the August 23rd meeting. Having reviewed the August 23rd meeting of the study session, Commissioners, do you have any changes or a motion to approve?
Move to approve as submitted?
Second.
Thank you very much. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? One abstention. Thank you very much. We'll be moving on from item 5 to item 6, public comment. Staff, do we have any public comment this evening? No? Thank you very much. We're moving on from item 6 to item 7, our director's manager report. I believe, Anwar, will you be delivering our report this evening? Thank you very much.
Thank you. There's really not, just want to let you know, as you have in front of you, we just have one appeal for each of the next 3 meetings. That's the extent of the report tonight.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Commissioners, before moving on, do we have any questions for staff?
No, but I do have a question about commissioners' comments. Are we not using commissioner comments at the beginning and at the end as we normally do? I don't see that on the agenda.
It's our next item 8.
It's
Commission
been,
comments. Oh,
I apologize.
no worries. So are we moving on any further before we move on? So we're moving on to item 7 to item 8, commission comments. Commissioners, this is time to comment.
I forgot my notes, but I'm going to try to use my memory. I wanted to report on the May Rosenstein campus at the Los Angeles LGBT Center, senior housing, which will be on McCadden Place. The housing is they're going to provide 98 units of senior living, which will be 6 stories. West Hollywood is committed to $2.1 million, which will be coming from our Affordable Housing Trust Fund. The project also will provide 25 units of affordable units for young people. There will be also 60 beds for transitional living program and an additional 40 emergency overnight beds that will obviously just be used for overnight. There will be a commercial-grade kitchen, of course, parking, and other services for the homeless. The majority of the money will be coming from May Rosenstein and HHH, which will provide $4.9 million. And of the money that the city of West Hollywood is providing, it will provide for 13 units, which will be affordable. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question? Do you know if, since the city is providing funding as part of that project, will those units always go first choice to City of West Hollywood residents?
Yes. The 13.
Okay, thank you.
Just wanted to also comment, I believe all the commissioners received my email that I sent to council on August 28th, just asking, alerting council that I had heard of a ZTA, a zone text amendment regarding residential leases requiring a minimum duration of 1 year. That went to council and asking that that item be sent to our commission for review. I did receive responses back from some council members that were very favorable to that idea, but I'm not sure what the status of that is now that it was intertwined with the 8500 Sunset project, but I just wanted to let you each know that.
Thank you very much. Are there any further commission comments? Thank you. We'll be moving on from item 8 to item 9, our appeal this evening. This appeal is D-4327, 1412 North Laurel Avenue, apartment 9. This appeal was filed by Lizeth Urbina. Lizeth, you're present tonight. Thank you. Just to note to the commission, we have no further audience members, so our tenant, Jenny Ivanova, is not here this evening. We'll have a report from legal counsel Allison Regan at this time.
Thank you. Tenant Jenny Ivanova has lived in Unit 9 at 1412 North Laurel since July 1st of 2006, pays monthly rent of $1,185. She applied for a determination of the maximum allowable rent and also for a determination whether the landlord had retained any rent in excess of that MAR. The hearing examiner found that the MAR for the tenancy is $1,151.55, and also found that the landlord had retained rent in excess of that MAR in the amount of $4,453.74. In the appeal, the landlord argues that the hearing examiner did not take into consideration a rent increase from 2007, and that as a result, her calculation of the MAR is incorrect. But a review of the hearing examiner's decision reveals that she indeed applied every rent increase beginning with 2007 and to the present, and also that she correctly made those mathematical calculations. So based on the record, the staff recommends that the commission support the hearing examiner's decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Regan. Commission, do you have questions for Ms. Regan?
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to make a comment that I just wanted to disclose that I know Jenny Ivanova. We worked together back in 2006, 2007 when I worked at City Hall. We've remained friends over the years, but I have no financial ties to her or I have any financial interest in the outcome of this matter, and I feel that I can be, what's the word I'm looking for? Impartial. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kirby's. So before we hear from our person who filed our appeal tonight, Ms. Urbina, just to explain to you, you'll have 5 total minutes to speak this evening. Please understand that you will not be able to present new evidence to the commission. We're not able to hear any new evidence. When you're ready to speak, please state your name and your city of residence, and you will have 5 total minutes to speak, and make sure you speak into the mic so we can hear you and they can hear you on the broadcast. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lizeth Urbina, and I actually live in Culver City. We are appealing this case because, yes, she moved in June 2014 of 2006 to the address. She was given a rent increase after a year, and according to the West Hollywood AGA, during that time from From September 2007 to August 2008, the annual general adjustment was 4%. So she was giving a 4% increase starting July 2007. She was served that increase in May 2007. After that, in 2007, 2009, her rent increases were given in May to be effective in July. Based on the first calculation of 4%, her rent increase was to $1,029. We are appealing because we think all our calculations are correct based on the information that was provided, every evidence. We have, I know this is an appeal and I can't provide it, but we have evidence that everything was done correctly. And in starting 2009, there was no rent increase because nothing was allowed. But in July 2010, all the rent increases were served to be effective in September of that year. So once again, at the beginning, her rent increases were to be effective July. But starting September 2009, that's when we decided that the rent increases will be effective in September. I'm sorry, I know it was confusing, but that's it.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have questions for Ms. Urbina? We may, just,
Maybe if she could just walk us through the math, like on the very first, I mean, I don't know if that's helpful to the rest of the commission
Yes.
or not, but, or not. I mean, it's, if it would help the commission, I'm a little confused.
if it would help you, we can hear from her. She's,
If
Okay.
you could just kind of start, you have what we have, right? The page, I guess probably the best place to look at would be page, is it 55?
in short, our documents have a rental agreement that starts at $9.90 with the $5 amount pass-through. And we're interested in your perspective on how do you get to a rental increase of $1,029 in documents that we have for the very next year in 2007?
So the rent increase from 2007 to 2008, August? Yeah.
We're
It
interested
was-
in the very beginning, though.
Okay, so yeah, the rent, okay.
Page 50.
She moved in June, so she was due for a rent increase in July of 2007. And then during that time, from September 2007 to August 2008, the allowable rent increase was 4%.
So I'm going back even a year, because I believe this tenant began their occupancy in 2006, correct?
Correct.
So there was a rental increase between 2006 and 2007, correct?
Yeah.
So
she-
so I'm asking so before you get to the 2007 to 2008 rental increase, what's at issue here is a clerical error that may have happened between 2006 and 2007.
That's what I'm trying to explain.
Okay.
So, according to the website, the allowable rent increase was 4% from September 2007 to August 2008. So 4% of the 990 is about a $23 increase. That's why her rent increase went from $990 to $1,029.
So if you could go to page 55 in the packet,
Is that the exhibits?
that's, yeah, that's,
In the exhibits.
it's page 55 in our packet. It's what it is, it's not titled, but it just has a graph or a chart on their year, rent amount, city approved rent increase.
Okay.
Looks similar to this page
Okay.
55.
Okay. Yeah. I have it. Right here. Okay.
Help us understand where this chart, where the error is.
Okay. If you take the initial rent of 990 times 4%, that's about a $23.17 increase. So if you add that to the 990, you should get 1,000. Oh no, actually that's a $39 increase. Excuse me. I did this reversed. 990 times 4%, it's $39.60. We round downward, so we only increased it by $39. So her new rent was $1,029.
Do we have anything in the packet that shows, I don't have anything in mind that I can recall that shows a 4% increase in rent? I don't think the AGA has ever been 4%
No,
that I
it was not 4%, it was 0.0225%, and you do have an exhibit in the packet where the landlord themselves presumably applied that amount, but the math was incorrect. So if you'd like to turn to, it's Exhibit 6.
Yep.
I'm not sure exactly which page it is in your packet, but it's Exhibit 6, and it's a chart that was submitted by, yeah, so it's page 55 of your packet. It was a chart submitted by the landlord, and it lists the AGAs, and the first AGA, 1.0225, that's, obviously, if you're multiplying, that's 0.0225%, yeah.
So there was no AGA of 4%. I think perhaps that's where your mathematical calculations initially stemmed from, that someone applied the wrong amount, which was in excess of what you're allowed to charge. So perhaps, without going through this line by line, it's that initial increase that was in error that compounded over the years.
I have a question. I downloaded this, the annual general adjustment from the packet, the West Hollywood packet, and it gives how much it should be every year. So that's a 4% increase for 2006, 2007. So now I'm confused.
You can get that in the packet of information we provided you?
Yeah, it's in the website, the West Hollywood.
Oh, so it's on the website?
Yes. And this is where I got it from, because we wanted to make sure that our calculations, if they were off, we would honor it. So that's why we were confused as well, because it was 4% in 2006 to 2007.
But your first adjustment was in 2007 to 2008, so even if there were a 4% increase that prior year, you can't take a retroactive increase.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. If the percentage is 4% from September 1st, 2006 to to August 31st, 2007, and her rent increase was effective July, wouldn't that fall within the allowable rent increase?
Well, yes.
Turning towards legal counsel.
They were specifically implementing the 2007 increase per their rent increase notice, and per their documentation, they elected to take the 2007 increase at 1.0225.
You can't kind of pick and choose which year's increase.
Yeah, okay. But after a year, so it was in July, the new 2.25% didn't take effect until September 1st, 2007. That's where I'm confused now.
You know, I do remember 2006 as being the highest amount that has ever been the increase, and it was 4%. So I don't know how she would have gotten a miscalculation. I'm kind of confused myself about that. If she's taken it from 6, but it seems like the city is really saying it could only be applied from 7 and at a lower amount.
And I think, that these are questions probably for legal counsel during our deliberation. We, probably need to get some guidance and get walked through this
All right.
slowly. And I would like to be walked through if that's okay.
Sure,
But before we do that, do we have any further questions for our Ms. Urbina? Okay.
Not now, yeah.
So we have no further questions at this point. You can take a seat, and we'll go through deliberations, and we'll flush this out. So now moving on to commission deliberations, I know we have a few questions, and we want to, walk through this. So Ms. Regan, if you could help us a bit. Thanks so much.
So again, looking at the landlord's own increases, they elected to take the 2007 increase of 1.025. They wouldn't be able to do both. So it sounds like what Ms. Urbina is implying is that they meant to impose the 2006 adjustment in July, and then again in September of that year impose the 2007. You can't do that because you can only take one increase a year. So by their own documentation, they went ahead and implemented the 2007 increase in July.
And they made a mathematical error when doing that.
Correct.
Okay, because I'm very confused by the 4%, but that's not what's in our packet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And I just want to note for the record that Agassi Topchian, our commissioner, is
Thank
not
you.
present.
I
Thank you.
apologize, I was late because of the traffic was really bad. The question for the legal counsel. Ms. Regan, the calculation chart on page 55 of the packet, this is what the examiner created. That's correct, or not?
No, that's something that the landlord
The
submitted.
landlord submitted.
Correct.
So, and the landlord's chart also acknowledges the overcharges. Okay.
Yes.
And the examiner's chart includes the percentage itself, the AJ percentage. Not just the amounts, but the percentage, right? Because the landlord's chart doesn't include the percentage.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioners, I'm just giving you some time to do the math and read the materials, just so you know.
I'm just still confused. I'm looking at both that chart on page 55 submitted by the landlord and page 81 in our packet, which is that notice of rental increase. And just, tapping out of my calculator, it looks like, 990 initial rent times 0.0225 brings it to 1012.275. So I'm not seeing in the record where they're claiming a 4% increase. Am I missing something in the packet or misreading something?
There is no 4% increase.
Okay.
So help me figure out how we got from 990 to 1012, or, 1012.28.
Multiply 990 times 0.225, add that to 990, and that'll bring you to 990 was the base. 990 was the initial rent. Multiply that by the general adjustment that year, which is the 0.0225. Then add that figure into 990, and you'll get.
Oh, it wasn't, okay.
Yeah.
So this is,
So 990.
it wasn't .01, or, this is 1.0225%?
You multiply by 0.0225.
Yeah, you can either multiply it 1.0225 and then that's your total, or 0.0225 and then add that
Add
to
it.
the 990.
Doing the one.
Got it.
It's that new math.
Yeah. So in short, the rent in 2007 should have been $1,012.28, but in fact, it was $1,029. And then we went forward from that for many
That's-
years,
That's correct.
resulting in the overcharge.
Exactly.
Commissioners, anything further, or are we ready for a vote? Or any comments from any commissioners about this matter?
Only that it's unfortunate that this mistake was made. I'm sure it was not done with any malice intent. It just was a miscalculation, and at some point it had to be corrected. And unfortunately, it's finally being corrected, and it is a large amount. But, the rule is the rule, and the calculation was incorrect.
I'll make a motion that we adopt Resolution RSC 18-531, a resolution of the Rent Stabilization Commission of the City of West Hollywood affirming the hearing examiner's decision on D-4327, 1412 North Laurel Avenue, Unit 9.
Thank you, Commissioner Bergstein. I'll second that motion. Secretary, may we have a roll call for this motion on the table?
Commissioner Kirpies? Commissioner Bergstein?
Sorry.
That's right. It's my fault.
Commissioner O'Keefe? Commissioner Maggio?
Aye.
Commissioner Topshian?
Aye.
Vice Chair Gregor?
Aye.
Chair Charity?
Aye. Thank you very much. You can refer all your questions to the staff, and they'll help you sort things out. If you have anything further, please see the staff.
Chair, may I ask a quick question for the legal counsel? Ms. Regan, it's just a technical. The reimbursement amount is it the reimbursement must be in the form of the cash reimbursement, or it can be a rent credit? It's just out of curiosity.
I believe the hearing examiner sets a date in the decision, and then if it's not paid by then the tenant has the option of deducting it from their rent.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Has the option of what?
Deducting it from their rent.
All right, thank you.
So if
Thank you.
nothing further, we'll move on from item 9 to item 10, the unfinished business. Commissioners, if you'll see in your packet, we have a resolution that we need to adopt from a prior appeal. Just to refresh your memory, this was also a MAR appeal where the city of West Hollywood had lost their re-registration packet, if you recall, and they found one with in our evidence that was stamped. And the hearing examiner in that case had ruled for the, well, we were remanding this because the city had ruled that they had not re-registered the apartment when in fact there was evidence that they had because the re-registration form had a stamp from the city of West Hollywood. So we had asked legal counsel to do a redraft for us. And Ms. Regan, do you have anything further to say about this redraft, or have we all just read through it and we approve of the language?
Yeah, so long as it's consistent with what you remember to be your ruling, just go
Sure.
ahead and vote.
So commissioners, if you've had a chance to read through it, or you want to take some time to read through it, or if you have any deliberation on this?
I'm happy to make a motion.
Thank you.
I move that we adopt Resolution RSC 18-530, which is a resolution of the Rent Stabilization Commission of the City of West Hollywood, reversing and remanding the hearing examiner's decision on D-4325 involving 1035 North Hayworth Avenue.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Brino, our secretary, can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Kirpies?
Aye.
Commissioner Bergstein?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Keefe? Commissioner Maggio?
Yes.
Commissioner Topshian?
Aye.
Vice Chair Gregor?
Aye.
Chair Charity?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The motion passes. We'll move on from item 10 to item 11, our new business with the 2018-2019 priorities of the Rent Stabilization Commission, confirming these priorities for 2018 and 2019. Are there commissioner comments on these priorities? Or do we have a staff report from anyone? No.
Just want to let you know that we've put the forms in front of you so that you can see on both sides of all the items as they were and what your choices were. And then on the other side with the top four with A, B, C, and D, those are the ones that seem to have the higher priorities that you commissioners chose. Now, if you want to make any changes, we'll be happy to take note, and then we'll make those changes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, are you interested in adding your vote to any of these?
No, I actually was speaking to Commissioner Kirpies earlier before the meeting, and I really appreciated the itemizations that were on here. From even prior appeals, I had some of the tenants come to me and talk about the older residents of West Hollywood being afraid of retribution for reporting certain things, and directing. I've at least sent 2 emails on my own to residents about the resources that we have at City Hall for reporting violations and grievances they have with their landlords, and without fear of retaliation. So I really liked seeing that up top, and I really loved seeing updates on state and federal law and seeing where our commission and our municipality fits into the bigger picture. I thought these were fantastic. Obviously, the repeal of Coster-Hawkins as well is very important to us. So I was in full agreement.
Yeah. And I'd just add, just a reminder, one of my fellow commissioners pointed out at the last meeting that just because these are what we came up with and we voted on at the time doesn't mean we're these are the only things we can talk about, you know, commissioners can try to get support to agendize any item throughout the year.
Thank you.
So we're not limited to addressing these priorities, but it's just the official priorities that we came up with.
So I don't believe we need a formal vote on this, correct? Just a discussion and confirming these are our priorities. Are there any changes or amendments or anything
I think
further?
we just filed and received, but I just wanted to add my comment that I thought it was an excellent study session. There was no minutia. We got really to the points, and everyone worked so well together, and David did a wonderful job chairing that study session, and I appreciated all the hard work that the staff did to make it as successful as it was. Thank you very much.
So then how do we want to move forward with discussing any of these items? We have a number of commission meetings coming up where we have one appeal, so there, to my mind, there might be some time that could be allocated at one of those meetings for staff to choose and present on what they would like to prepare for first. I don't want to box staff into any specific date or rush them into doing a presentation, but I would appreciate on those nights when we don't have a completely full agenda at the commission that they might take the opportunity as time allows to prepare and present items to us for further discussion.
Yeah, we'll look at that and see what staff's work plan allows along those lines.
Thank you. Yeah, now that it's confirmed, then we'll go to the next step of getting it on our agendas. Anything further on this item? Thank you. Okay, we'll be moving from item 11 to item 12, public comment. I don't believe we have any public comment, do we? No public comment. Moving on from item 12 to item 13, commission comments. Commissioners, do you have any further comments?
I just wanted to follow up on the point that Commissioner Kirby's made, because we both attended the 8500 Sunset Boulevard appeal, and it was a long night at council. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the feeling that I got from council was they kind of bifurcated out, at least for the purpose of that appeal, any discussion about a mandatory length of a lease in the city of West Hollywood. In fact, I think some of the council members felt that was something perhaps the developer might have tried to throw out into the public realm to shake things up a little bit. But I'm not recalling where council was trying to agendize anything, at least at that point, about a mandatory length of a lease in the city of West Hollywood. It's never been discussed before.
I think your perception is correct of that evening. My original email was in reference to a list of zone text amendments that's going to council, is being prepared right now to go to council at a later date. And so I left that meeting, and that's what I was referring to. Some council members who responded were receptive to that idea of having this be a discussion of the commission before it goes to them. However, that was just in their dialogue back and forth with me. But then that was all prior to the council meeting. So I left that meeting not knowing for sure what happens next in terms of my initial email about that subject matter.
About the project itself on Sunset?
Well, the zone text amendment that I had written the email to them about was in response to the activities there at 8500, but at the time that I wrote the email was under the belief that staff was drafting an item to bring to council at a later date, like in October. I don't know if they resolved it that night or what. But that was the context of my email prior to the council
think there's
meeting.
a $40 million lawsuit.
I just want to caution the commission, these are commission comments. This is not an item for discussion. So.
All right.
Could I ask that if council were to determine to discuss this, that we've been notified at the commission level, if it's going to be a council item?
That has been asked, and we don't know what the outcome is.
Are there any further commission comments?
I just one reminder from our minutes. I don't mind if it gets delayed because I know that Manager Noonan is not here this evening, but one of the motions at the last meeting was to come back to us on September 13th tonight with a date that would work best for a presentation or report on the unit re-registration form process. And I know that he's not here, and if you wanted to add anything to, I think your suggestion.
As I was mentioning to Commissioner Kirpies before the meeting, I discussed this with Mr. Noonan, and he was reminding me of some of the improvements that Rent Stabilization Division is going to make with respect to the availability of online systems, with respect to re-registration forms, and also a reminder system so that when a tenant comes in or anyone comes in and alerts, that results in the staff being alerted to a unit not having been re-registered, that will generate an automatic notice to the landlord, just to try to cut down on some of these surprises that sometimes landlords have with respect to the re-registration requirement. And I also suggested to Commissioner Kirpies that, similar to the smoking issue, if this is something that Commissioner Kirpies wants to explore, that there be a subcommittee formed to look at that issue, and then that report can then be brought back to the commission.
Would we want a subcommittee of 2 or 3? Or could we do either?
I think that would be up to the commission, so long as it's not more than 3.
I mean, because technically you were the person who made the motion, even though it was based on my initial.
I'd have no issue with that. I'd like to hear comments from the rest of my fellow commissioners.
Comments on
Instead of
Whether you
having.
would like to form a subcommittee to further explore it and then bring it back to commission for discussion at that point.
The alternative being staff coming to us with a date and presenting us a big presentation.
So do we want a subcommittee?
Based on your knowledge of the subject, do you think this is more knowledgeable for staff to present to us, or do you think a subcommittee is better for the
Staff.
Yeah.
I would say let staff to
So
bring something.
I think what she's suggesting is that we do a subcommittee to work with staff on the issue.
That's what I
to see if that we want to bring something to the commission, rather than having staff do a presentation on all aspects of it, and then us going off on making a motion in a direction that we choose to that night.
I think that's a good idea.
I'm fine with it. If we
This really isn't an agendized item.
It has to be agendized for discussion first, right? I would imagine.
I think we're discussing how to move
Because
forward.
we're already having the discussion.
Yeah, it would be great to give a thought and maybe come back with
Why
that
don't-
decision the next
Why
meeting.
don't I do this? Why don't we can agendize a discussion of a subcommittee to look at this issue for our next commission meeting, and in the meantime, the commissioners can give that some thought, and then we'll put that on the next agenda.
Yeah, I agree.
On the very next meeting. That'd be great.
That works for me.
Thanks very much. Are there any further commission comments? I just wanted to quickly welcome Celeste Brino, our commission secretary, to the commission. She'll be with us for the next 6 months at least. Thank you, Anwar, for filling in for Peter Noonan on vacation. And obviously, always thank you, Allison Regan, for your legal counsel. We'll move on to, from item 13, commission comments, to item 14, staff comments. I don't believe there are any, but are there any staff comments? No. So we'll move on to adjournment, and this time we'll adjourn this meeting of the Rent Stabilization Commission, and this meeting is adjourned. I understand.